Could we see some very significant moves in the Chicago Blackhawks organization to kind of bring an end to an era? Will we also see the return of Erick Staal very shortly on a free agent contract? We also have a suspension, another milestone for Alexander Ovechkin, a retirement, injuries, and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and rumors to talk about here today. Let's kick things off with news that Vancouver Canucks defenseman Tucker Poolman has been suspended for 2 games. Basically, he was given a match penalty. A situation came up where he kind of swung his stick, hit another player in the head. When you're given a match penalty, that's automatically reviewed by NHL player safety, and he's been suspended for an additional 2 games. So that's certainly going to change the D situation with the Canucks and obviously their pairs. Things have kind of really not been great for Vancouver recently. I know last night's game was certainly not good. I know Canucks coach Travis Green used the word embarrassed, for example. Been a bit of an up and down season for Vancouver here so far. Have to wonder if we're going to see some sort of change there coming up soon, whether it be behind the bench or a trade or something, but something has to give there. I certainly think they're better than what they've been showing as of late. Of course, we know the Ottawa Senators have been dealing with a major COVID situation. They have 8 players and a coach out on COVID protocols. They had 4 injured players, and that list has grown today. We found out a young defenseman, Erik Brannstrom, who was just recently called up due to other defensemen being on the COVID protocol list, finally getting more of an opportunity to play and show himself as an hopefully a gifted offensive defenseman that they thought they were getting when they received him via trade a couple of years ago. He's having a hard time the last couple of seasons kind of securing a full-time spot for, more than a few games here at a time, except for, one little stretch last year. And now he has a broken hand. Reports are looking like about 6 to 8 weeks before he's going to be able to return. So that's yet another blow. This team cannot seem to catch a break in any sort this year. Everything is going against them, much of which they cannot even control between injuries and, of course, the COVID outbreak. So hopefully, I know that the team themselves have been lobbying the NHL to postpone their games this coming weekend. So we'll see what they do, if the NHL steps in or not. But at this point, they seem somewhat reluctant to make any kind of scheduling changes. So we'll see where that goes. A longtime veteran NHL defenseman Braydon Coburn has officially announced his retirement. I think he was kind of hoping to get a contract this past offseason into the early part of this year, but obviously things never materialized, so he's calling it a career. Of course, he recently got a Stanley Cup with the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's played with other teams in the last couple of years, including a brief stint with the Islanders as a trade deadline pickup. Of course, he played a bit with the Ottawa Senators, but mostly Tampa. Had some time in Philly in there in his career. Certainly was a pretty serviceable defenseman for a big chunk of his career. Former first rounder. Had a pretty solid career and at least got a Stanley Cup to his name before it all came to an end. We also have some news on the NHL waiver wire here today. The players that were on waivers yesterday, including some veterans like Blake Coleman, did end up clearing, so there was no claims put in. So the Dallas Stars can take Como and Kiro, who were both on waivers yesterday, and assign them to the minors. And then today, the Flyers have placed forward Nicolas Aube-Kubel on waivers. Of course, he's 25 years old. For the most part, been a bottom 6 forward. A couple of years back during his rookie season, he had some decent offensive numbers, but things kind of took a step back last year and taken another step back this year. For the most part, he's gotten bottom 6 duty because he can be a decent forward checker, a tenacious kind of winger, decent on both ends of the ice that way, but obviously not quite getting it done, and they obviously want to clear a roster spot here for somebody else to get an opportunity, and Kubel is the odd man out. So we'll see if he ends up getting claimed. Wouldn't be shocked if a team maybe lower in the standings like the Coyotes or even a team like Buffalo or Detroit or somebody like that, even though they're not all super low in the standings right now, like obviously they could put in a claim because they don't have the deepest roster. So we'll see where this goes. He very well could end up getting assigned to the American Hockey League affiliate if nobody bites and puts in a claim. Of course, the other big news that came today as well is Jack Eichel has finally had his surgery. Today was the big day for Eichel to go under the knife and get the disc replacement surgery on his neck to repair the injury that he's been suffering now for 8-9 months while we waited for this whole trade fiasco to go down between the Buffalo Sabres and his, new team, which ended up being the Vegas Golden Knights, of course, which just completed here in the past week. So we reported a few days ago that Friday was going to be the day. It was just basically narrowing down what surgeon was going to do the procedure and kind of get the final details in place. We seen originally got word from NHL reporter for Sportsnet, Jeff Merrick, that he had word that the surgery was completed and everything went well. And then we later saw a statement from the Vegas Golden Knights themselves indicating that Jack Eichel's procedure went well, no complications, everything went exactly as planned, which is exactly what you want to hear. And now he can begin the recovery process. It's not like I said, a type of procedure that's going to have him, in hospital for too long or anything like that. He'll be able to resume skating in approximately 6 weeks if everything goes to plan. But it'll be about 3 months or thereabouts, maybe slightly more. Again, if everything goes to plan, before he can actually play a hockey game. But of course, because there's no documented history with this surgery on an NHL player, it's difficult to say because we don't know, right? We've seen this surgery done on other athletes of other sports, but of course, every sport's a little bit different. What kind of impact you have with different collisions and different things like that. So we'll see where this goes. Hopefully, long-term his prognosis is good, and he can return here. If not before, then probably right after the Olympic break and finish the season out in Vegas. I know early word was they were quite thrilled to have him. I know Mark Stone was reportedly quite thrilled as well to finally have a top center to play with. And you throw Max Pacioretty in the mix, and that very well could be the top line in hockey if things gel the way that, the Golden Knights and their fan base are hoping they will. It certainly has tons of potential, but you just never know until players get a chance to get on the ice with each other and find that chemistry. You really just don't know exactly how everything is going to work. But certainly lots of potential. At least he finally has his surgery, can get rid of the pain and move forward with his recovery and healing process. And of course, another big milestone here tonight as well. Alex Ovechkin, of course, in his last goal that he scored, tied Brett Hull. Now tonight he scores again for goal number 742 to take 4th place overall in the all-time NHL goal scoring list, completely on his own. I know that there was already a message sent from Brett Hull to Ovechkin that I've seen on Twitter that will be obviously played for Ovi. Certainly quite an accomplishment. Officially 4th overall. The way he's playing this year with the contract that he signed in the offseason, he doesn't even have to really score at a super high rate, even if his goal scoring days kind of slowed down a little bit here towards the end of his career, which at this point there's no signs of that. But even if it does, I believe he only has to average around 31 goals a year for the remainder of his contract to break Wayne Gretzky's all-time goals record. So to me, this is very much something that he should be able to do, barring the fact that he, can stay healthy and keep scoring, even if it slows down some. The odds of this happening now are even that much higher. So we're probably bound to see this sometime here, a few years down the road. But Ovi's well on his way. Now, before we jump into the rest of the video, I do need to pause for a moment and acknowledge our channel sponsor, Manscaped. Top Shelf Hockey is proud to be sponsored by Manscaped. And guess what? Hockey fans are buzzing because hockey is back. Want to know what else is buzzing? The Lawnmower 4.0 from our friends at Manscaped, who are the global leaders in male grooming, trusted by over 2 million men worldwide. I highly recommend the Performance Package 4.0, which includes their new state-of-the-art Lawnmower 4.0, as well as some other great features. The lawnmower itself has a 7,000 RPM motor, a new multifunction switch that can engage as a travel lock, gives you the ability to turn on an LED spotlight as well for a more precise shave. Also, as I've mentioned on numerous occasions before, Manscaped is about much more than just a trimmer. They have everything, all aspects covered in male grooming, including some great formulations like their brand new ultra premium body wash to keep you smelling great all day long. It's certainly a big hit here. I absolutely love it. They also have other exfoliators and gels to keep all aspects of your grooming needs covered. I highly recommend you check out manscaped.com. Use promo code TSH for 20% off and free shipping. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com using promo code TSH. Thanks very much for watching that promotional content. I do greatly appreciate it. Now into the rumor section of today's video. There is word and rumors from NHL insider Pierre LeBrun that Erick Staal may be making an NHL return and could be signing a contract sometime before the end of this month. Of course, we know that Erick Staal played for the Hurricanes a long time. Then he ended up in Minnesota after a brief stint with the Rangers. And then Minnesota ended up trading him to Buffalo, which was a bit of a blindside trade. I know he wasn't really thrilled with that situation. Things didn't go well in Buffalo. But then he got to finish things out last year with the Montreal Canadiens and was a part of their team to help them go all the way to the Stanley Cup final. Of course, Montreal's seeing a little bit of a different fate this year so far. And Staal certainly had his moments at times where he was a good part of that, and other times where he had his struggles as well. But it doesn't look like he's ready to hang him up like we saw from Braydon Coburn announced today. Staal is not ready to make that announcement here just yet. Pierre LeBrun's reporting that there's about 3 or 4 teams in the mix, and he's likely going to sign a 1-year contract, probably somewhere near league minimum, just to get into the mix here and get on an NHL roster and get playing. Apparently he's been working out in Minnesota to do his best to stay in shape, and we'll see where things go. At this point, LeBrun is saying that Erick Staal does prefer to play in the United States as opposed to Canada, just to be closer to family, and because of the, I guess the things going back and forth across the border, different requirements. I know they're not quite as strict as they were last year, but there's still some requirements there when you do that, and it's just easier to stay closer to family. So his preferred destination obviously would be, again, to play for the Minnesota Wild, since that's where he's still living. But at this point, there doesn't seem to be mutual interest, so it doesn't look like a return to the Minnesota Wild is really something that's going to come to fruition here. But I would imagine he's likely talking to the other 3 or 4 teams that he is. They're likely teams that are not too far away geographically. It would be easy to get back and forth and get home to see family during his off time and whatnot. So we'll see where this goes, but that is likely bound to happen here in the next couple of weeks, according to Pierre LeBrun. So we're not really sure who those teams are at this point, but like I said, I would imagine they're geographically not too far from Minnesota, or an easy flight one way or another. So we should have more information on that in the coming days. Now, of course, as I mentioned as well, we have a little bit more information to talk again about the Chicago Blackhawks, and possibly kind of saying it's time to rebuild. It's time to have an end of an era here, and it's time to move on from their top 2 superstars of the past decade plus, who brought the team 3 Stanley Cups. Of course, we know that the Chicago Blackhawks at this point are certainly well within their they're having their struggles off the ice as well as on the ice, with all the bad publicity, with the lawsuit from Kyle Beach and everything that's gone down here with the cover-up and all the executives and coach and everything, that everybody that's lost their jobs here recently. Is certainly quite the ripple effect across the league for current and former Blackhawks employees. And of course, some of these players that were involved with those teams when this happened, like Toews and Kane, didn't exactly do themselves any favors with the remarks that they made, even though they didn't really necessarily intended to come out that way. They basically come out like they were, talking well and defending the people that lost their jobs because they had great relationships with those people. But they have to remember that they were superstar players, and they were probably treated a little bit different than your average everyday player, especially your guys like Kyle Beach, who was a prospect coming in, trying their best just to get an opportunity, if nothing else. I mean, although he was himself a decently, highly rated first-round pick too, it's surprising that they didn't do a better job to protect him, really. It shouldn't matter if you're a first-rounder, a fifth-rounder, a seventh-rounder, a walk-on signing. I mean, everybody deserves health and safety to be taken seriously, and nobody deserves to receive any form of abuse at all. But it's especially surprising that you didn't see the team making a bigger deal over it where he was a first-round pick, because that first-round picks and top prospects like that typically do get more opportunities and more chances, and do get a little bit more of that superstar treatment, and none of that really occurred here as well. But for these guys, it's likely time to move on in many opinions. Now, of course, Greg Wyshynski of ESPN have gone and made some comments saying that he feels if the Hawks continue to struggle and don't make significant strides in the next probably 10 games or so, that is pretty much the Hawks really don't have much of a choice but to go to their top 2 players, who certainly have a lot of control over their contracts, and talk to them about waiving them to be able to move on from these players. If it doesn't happen between now and the trade deadline, then it needs to happen during the offseason. These two players both make $10 million a year, so obviously has a major impact on the team's salary cap situation, but they could also be used as key pieces to bring back decent returns to allow them to really go more into this full rebuild. They can choose to keep a few players around that they can continue to build around, like Alex DeBrincat and of course Kirby Dach are a couple of your main guys you're going to look at. Obviously you have Seth Jones. He signed to a mega contract. He's likely not going anywheres as well. And of course, there's not too many other guys that would kind of fall into that category. Maybe Dominic Kubalik. There seems to be a difference of opinions on Kubalik on whether or not he stays as part of that core or if he gets moved, because he would actually have decent value being a former 30-goal scorer just 2 years ago himself. So I guess we'll see where that goes. But in the case of Toews and Kane, especially given their roles on their being the captain and assistant captain on the team and being such heroic players from the past decade, from that, 3 cups, said things are really tarnished now. And not only should they be trying to move on to get this team going through more of a rebuild, but like I said before, when they hire their new permanent GM and permanent coach and all these people that need to be brought into the organization, they need to not only be looking at the on-ice product, but they need to figure out now how to handle the team's reputation, how to rebuild trust with the community, how to get their fans back into the building. There's a lot more that's going to go along with that. And if they're going to be struggling, it only makes sense to get as much of a younger assets when it comes to prospects and picks and everything like that to continue this on as you possibly can. So Toews and Kane can certainly bring that. They're likely going to have to retain some salary given how much money they make. But to me, I think it's something that I agree with Wyshynski's comments, that they really do need to find a way to move on from these guys and really just kind of distance themselves from everything that was. As much as they went through a really long stretch of great success, that's heavily tarnished now, and not everybody's only going to remember, or at least mostly, but all the allegations and all the abuse, everything that kind of left a big stain on that era of Blackhawks hockey. So the better you can move on from it and get a fresh start, probably the better, because there's way more at stake here than just the on-ice product and just about hockey. It's about trust. It's about rebuilding the community and the relationship with everybody, and kind of gaining some transparency as well to show that you've learned from this major cover-up, and that you're going to make sure things like this never happen again and things like that, and be leaders for change. They really should be, but instead you're still getting word that the Blackhawks are not being easy to deal with when it comes to Kyle Beach and the other victim in Michigan when it comes to trying to get settlements in place. There's words that they're being extremely difficult that way. The lawyer for Kyle Beach is also asking a judge to proceed with a discovery lawsuit, and they've made 31 separate requests for documentation to kind of show a lot of what they know, and it's believed that it's likely going to be posed and coming as well for the NHL and NHLPA. They requested a ton of information, including records when it comes to Brad Aldrich and several other things here. They want to get everything aired out, and of course the more they can do through the lawsuit, which if information that can be public, is probably going to increase the better return and the better outcome for the victims to get a better settlement from the Blackhawks, most likely. So obviously the Blackhawks are probably going to try to keep a lot of that stuff private and quiet and try to settle out of court, but like I said, the words are that they're not getting really any progress in that way. So we'll see where that goes. But with everything going on off the ice, I think that it's time the Hawks move on from what's left of that on the ice as well, and just really get a fresh start. So let me know your thoughts. Where could Kane and Toews end up? They got 1 year left after this year. Even with some salary retained, I think they could figure out a way to make it work for different teams out there. I'm sure there's teams out there that have been looking for top players that they want to add to be like on a cup contending Stanley Cup run. Looking at teams like the Avalanche, for example, they've been in on everybody else. They haven't gotten it done yet. Maybe they add somebody like that. They got to put them over the top and get all that experience of 3 Stanley Cups and all that to kind of come in and help them get over the top. I think there's value there, And I think teams would be willing to do this if these players are willing to negotiate those no-move clauses and take their services elsewhere. So let me know your thoughts. Something to discuss down below in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.